Welcome to Keep Trucking Personal, where we invite you to explore the heart and soul of our company, Kivi Brothers Trucking. Through engaging storytelling, insightful market updates, and vibrant energy, our podcast reflects our culture, values, and achievements. Whether you're a team member or industry enthusiast, join us to build connections, foster growth, and inspire excellence. Discover why we're more than just a company. We're a community, a catalyst for positive change, and a home for those aspiring to be part of something extraordinary. The pre-trip is complete and engines ready. We're set to hit the road on the Keep Trucking Personal podcast. Let's go.
Welcome to Keep Trucking Personal. My name is Tyler Kivi, and today I'm sitting with Keith Rahn. And Keith is actually sitting in Ohio, right, Keith?
Yes, sir, I am.
Well, I'm excited to have you on here, and I know you got a long story, a deep story, I should say, of all the things that you've done. You've been a part of the Army and a nonprofit that you're kind of championing or leading yourself, and many of the other things that you're a part of. So I'm excited to hear all of that. And you're a professional driver here at Kivi Brothers, which is also, we're very fortunate to have, because just recently you were able to participate in Wreaths Across America. And I'm excited to hear that story too, because I think you picked the load up in Maine. I don't remember the exact city, but I'm going to let you unpack all that. So Keith, welcome. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into trucking and the Army and all of that?
Thank you, Tyler. So originally I didn't have any plans to get into trucking, nor the military. In high school, I played sports. My goal was to play professional baseball. I made it up to doing tryouts to go to a farm league for a pro team, destroyed my knee, and my sports ended.
Quick?
That quick. So I decided I was going to get into culinary arts, which was something I loved doing in school. And I furthered my education, became a serve safe instructor, got my degree in culinary arts and restaurant management. And then I got a secondary major in business administration. And my grandfather at the time, he was like, look, our family has served every year since 1792. So every generation has served. And I knew our family had a lifetime commitment to the military, but it just wasn't my calling. And my mom and my grandfather told me, they said, if you do not join the military, we're going to cut you out of the inheritance and basically disown me because I'd be the first person not to join the military.
Don't break the chain.
So reluctantly, we started talking about that option, and my grandfather's like, you have to go Navy. My stepfather was Army National Guard. My other uncle, he was Army. So it became a big squabble of where I was going to wind up. And I didn't want to be under Navy because me and boats, just no, it ain't going to happen. Although I am an avid scuba diver, you're not getting me on a boat. It is not going to happen for any reason, shape, or form. And I joined the Army. I figured, let's just go and do this. I took the MEPS. I went to MEPS in Richmond, took the ASVAB, scored a 97 out of a 99, which is extremely high for the ASVAB test. Decided to be a cavalry scout, went to Fort Knox, did basic and AIT there, which is basic combat training, advanced individualized training. And I went to Fort Polk and finished up my term in Fort Polk. After I got out, I went right back to culinary arts because I love to cook. It's something that I've always liked to do. I like messing with food, seeing what kind of concoctions I can come up with without poisoning myself.
Pushing the limits.
So I finally got my master's in culinary, started NRV food service. From NRV food service, I did that for off and on about 20 years. And during COVID, I owned a company called NRV Food Service out of Radford, Virginia. And that's where our veterans program started from. We would see homeless people. We would cook food, take food to them, team up with different restaurants, make sure that they had at least one meal a day. And then we started training homeless veterans in restaurants and restaurant management and food prep and serve safe and culinary arts. And it gained the attention of the media. And those videos are actually on YouTube now about the interviews and what we were doing. So when I retired from food service because of COVID, I was like, now what am I going to do? I can't support my family if I don't have income. In COVID, they shut all the restaurants down. So I was essentially forced out of work. So I was like, I started Googling, okay, what are jobs that are not going to be affected by COVID? And one of the top jobs that came up was the truck driver. So I went and got my CDL. I self-trained, I self-taught. My best friend, he had a truck in his own company. I called him. I was like, look, I got my learner's permit for my CDL. Can I work with you for a while so I can learn the basics? And he's like, yeah, sure. So that's how I started trucking. And I got so COVID slowed me down a little bit because all the CDL examining sites were closed. I was like, okay, I've got my learner's permit. I've had my permit for a year. How am I going to do my test if nobody's testing because of this COVID crap? So he sent me up to Salt Lake City. There was one school up there that was actually doing testing. I went up there, did a one and done. I mean, I went in, did my road test, did my knowledge test, passed everything, flew back home, got my seat, took paperwork to the Virginia DMV, and he immediately was like, look, I've got a heavy haul truck open. The guy that was driving it fell and broke his back. He goes, I'm not doing heavy haul. That's not what I want to do. I'm happy with just regular vans and reefers, but I can't let this truck sit. He's like, you want to try it? I'm like, maybe. And wound up doing it, and I loved it. I did it for a year and a half with him. And I decided I wanted to be with a bigger company. Just two trucks in the company. There's not really a lot to do. And it didn't match up with what I wanted to do. So I went to KLLM first, or Western Express. And Western Express didn't work out. They left me in a escape ramp for 3 days on my personal experience, which state police had to get involved, tow me out. They impounded the truck and I went home. So then I went to KLLM, which I loved it there. But once again, it was in Jackson, Mississippi. It's not where I wanted to be. And I became an owner operator. Well, I became a lease purchase operator with another company. Did that for about 2.5 years. And they came here because I missed being in flatbeds. Because that's where I started. I was doing heavy haul. And I wanted to get back to that. So that's why I came to Kivi.
Very cool. So when you were in the Army, and a lot of the veterans that we have working here or that I've dealt with previously have stories to tell of where they were driving large equipment when they were in the Army. Did you have any experience with that, or when you were?
No, I was a cavalry scout, which is basically part of a recon team. We did forward scout. I never got deployed overseas. I was stateside my whole 4 years. So, but I was trained in cavalry scout as a 19 Delta, and I wish I had taken it further, but it wasn't meant to be.
Yeah. And then moving into the culinary arts, what are some of your favorite things to cook? Like, why don't you tell me a little bit about that? Does that background help you when you're out on the road, right?
It does, because I don't have to eat out as much. I'm actually working on a cookbook now. It's called 101 Ways to Cook in a Truck. Everything from ramen noodles to pizzas to chicken, steaks, tacos. I mean, you would be amazed about how much stuff you can actually cook in a limited area. Mm-hmm. And it's just my passion. So I really love doing it.
So you have any short tips that you can throw out there, or maybe some recommended recipes that
I'll send you some.
Yeah.
And you can do them as an attachment or something.
Okay. I mean, you've got quite the background when you look at everything that you've gone through, and then the COVID kind of pivoting you into trucking is unique, for that matter of, like, you didn't have the trucking background, and to go after it and pursue it and, now have a a profession of being a over the road truck driver and hauling and machinery and many different types of, freight. It's a pretty cool story. And you've also, why don't you tell us some of the things that you've had that you've accomplished while being a driver? I know you've been a highway angel.
So I've only been doing professional driving for almost 6 years. In 6 years, well, in the last 4 years of those six, I've gotten 2 Highway Angel Awards. I've hauled the Walnut Hills, which is a massive Vietnam Veterans Memorial. I was honored to do that. I've done Wreaths Across America twice. I was the Wisconsin Motor Carrier Association Driver of the Month for March of 2024. I received the Virginia Professional Driver of the Year in 2023. I've got the Presidential Lifetime Service Medal for volunteering and assisting veterans. And I got the 2023 Presidential Safe Driver Award, where I was honored up at the White House for that. So that was pretty cool. I'm in the running right now for the TCA Driver of the Year and the Wisconsin Motor Carrier Drivers Association Driver of the Year for 2024.
Well, you're busy. Can you tell
It
us
is
about the
what it
Highway
is.
Angel situations that you had come upon?
So I got two. I was nominated for a third. I haven't heard back on the third one. The first one, I was in Pennsylvania, and I was sitting at a rest stop actually doing my 30-minute break, and there was a car up against one of those like Jersey rails. And I didn't pay no mind to it because it wasn't affecting me. But when I was ready to leave, I was going to go up and knock on his window and ask him to move so I could get out. And all of a sudden, the car started drifting backwards and slammed into the front of another semi. So I got out of my truck. The guy that he hit got out of his truck, and we ran up to his car because it was plastered across the front of his bumper. And the guy was completely drunk. I mean, he had his pants down to his ankles. There was beer everywhere, alcohol bottles everywhere. I mean, he couldn't do anything. I mean, he was literally passed out. So I reached in, turned the car off, took the keys, called 911, explained to them the situation. Pennsylvania State Trooper came out. I flagged him down because he couldn't find us at first. And he told the guy like 8 times, 9 times, get out of the car. Man, you need to get out of the car. And the guy wanted to fight with the cop. So me and the cop pulled him out of the car through the window, literally forced him out of the car. And then when he figured out how drunk he was, the cop became concerned that he might have alcohol poisoning. So when EMS got there, I actually helped the cop carry him to the rescue squad to get him out of there. That was the first time. The second one I got awarded was I was on I-80 eastbound, and it was heavy fog. I mean, to a point where you could not see the road, even with your headlights on because of how dense the fog was. And I was doing about 55, 60 miles an hour, just cruising right lane. And I saw something, but I didn't know what it was. So instinctively, I slowed down. And come to find out, it was like a metallic silver, dark color car. Well, not dark, but not light either. And she was in the right lane, no lights, no power, nothing. She was just dead stop. So I used my truck to block the road because I had ambers on my truck, and I helped her by pushing her off the road and then staying with her until I think it was Ohio State showed up, and they got her some help and a record and whatnot. And then she nominated me for that one.
Very cool. I think that's something that is exciting to hear about. And I think, there's a lot of drivers that do a lot of good deeds. And I think for me, I'm passionate about this industry getting back to that. I think the industry's lost a little bit of its, care for everyone around them. We get so self-centered in this industry, and it's kind of a long story, right? That the way I feel about it. But I think doing the acts of kindness that you're doing, the outreach and showing that this trucking industry is strong and it's there to help anyone that's around it. And you've got So the list goes on and on of the things you've accomplished. What keeps you motivated to keep accomplishing or getting these recognition or going through and, driver of the year here and Wreaths Across America, which we'll talk about in a minute, but what keeps you motivated to keep pursuing all of this?
Compassion for others,
Yeah.
doing things that I think are the best way to shed light on a particular industry, and being professional
Yeah.
and courteous to the people around me.
Yeah.
If you cannot be professional and courteous to other motorists, what does that say about you?
Yeah.
Just like the other day, I watched a podcast about keeping your truck clean and the image that a clean truck provides. Well, that goes along with the same thing as being professional.
Yeah.
So that's my main motivation. The rest of the motivation comes from the way I was raised. My mother, my grandmother, my grandfather. My dad died when I was 5, so I don't count him in. But if I didn't do what I was taught to do as a child by my grandmother and my grandfather and the way that they raised me, my grandmother would come out of her grave, stomp a mud hole in my rear end, crawl back in her grave with a smile with a sign that said, "I'll be back if you do it again." And no offense, I'm scared to death of my grandmother, and she's dead.
Yeah, I mean, there's someone's got to be held accountable somehow, and it's not always somebody sitting right next to you. You know what I mean? It's you got to hold yourself accountable and have that passion. And it's exciting to hear that. Like I said, for me, I think I love this industry. It's the only industry I've been in my whole life, and it's slowly drifted, just to where maybe there's not as much care as there used to be back in the day. And I believe that was you saw somebody in the shoulder, you helped them. You saw somebody needing. It didn't matter who it was. You were giving that extra bit of effort to make sure that they were okay or get through the situation, or it's just helping out a fellow driver, at a shipper or a receiver. Making sure that it's windy. I mean, we've all dealt with windy tarping, and now it's just about to be Christmas and snow and ice, and you're dealing with icy roads right now, right?
Yes, sir, I am.
And so there's situations that we come upon over and over and over, and going that extra mile and helping somebody's a big deal to me. And so I appreciate that.
I was talking to one of our other drivers the other day, and I'm not going to say who it was, but he was complaining, basically saying that they were pushing him to get that load there, and it was icy. I said, look, if you have to chain up, it's time for you to stop. Because if you have chains are made to get you out of trouble, not put you into more trouble.
Yeah.
So I told him, I said, remember, you're the captain of that ship. If it's too dangerous, you make the call.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would much rather see a load being late instead of a load being damaged or not showing up at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and that's the way I look at stuff.
There's a go, no go type mentality, and you definitely got to know when to pull the trigger and when to stay back, stay in the bunk and ride out the storm. So when you did your Wreaths Across America trip, tell us about that, because it was from Columbia, Maine to St. Louis, right?
Correct. Columbia Falls, Maine to St. Louis, Missouri to a cross stop.
Okay. How was that, and how did that make you feel? And being the industry and everything you're doing, and this is even deeper than just the trucking side. This is for veterans. Just tell me, unpack that kind of. Just, do you get any emotions that come up, and what are your thoughts?
You do. You get really humbled by the experience. I was just talking to your brother about it. I think it was like 2 days ago, and he was asking me kind of the same thing, asking me to explain to him about the program. And my best way to explain it is to come up there and do it yourself. I actually invited him. I said, I'm going to do it again next year, God willing. Why don't you ride up with me and do it? And he's like, why? I'll just take my own truck up there. So, but it is a really humbling experience. You have to think about it. They cover 45 or 4,800 national cemeteries throughout the U.S. It's all done by volunteers, and they hand make the wreaths by hand by volunteers. They are packaged by volunteers. They are shipped with trucking companies that volunteer the time, the energy, the resources, and the truck to ship them. They are housed at warehouses. In some instances, like this time we did a cross stock. Those are all volunteered and donated areas. And then I get to another group of people will volunteer to transport from the warehouse to the cemetery, or if the truck is going directly to the cemetery, volunteers get there, they escort the truck in. It's a big parade. Then you're offloaded all by volunteers. Wreaths are placed on every headstone by volunteers. And just the amount of humility, I guess, and compassion that people show that one time throughout the year to make sure these people are not forgotten is just, it's humbling.
For
That's
sure.
the only way I can explain it, except for you doing it yourself and actually experiencing it. If you've never done it, I would say do it at least once, because then you're going to be addicted to it at that point.
There is, and I talked about that on previous episodes, but the act of giving actually, some people may overlook what it does for your body and your own mental health, but the act of giving, the act of being a part of something that's bigger than yourself has big benefit. And, this year for us as a company, we've been able to participate in the Wreaths Across America, the hurricanes that came through the Southeast, and the loads and the hay and all the stuff we were able to bring down there. And, and our company was just a small part of that, but the organizing and watching people bring supplies to help people they will never meet. You know what I mean? They were merely just wanting to be a part of it because they wanted to contribute to the bigger, better picture of those people, and understanding that, what they're going through is something that sometimes we could never imagine. And it's been a year for me, as far as, like you said, humility and humbling, to be a part of these monumental services. And you were able to contribute that with Kivi Brothers on the door, and we're thankful and grateful for that. And yeah, it's someday, I think that's what Derek and I will be doing out there, is, maybe moving the Christmas tree across America in the capital, where it comes from, British Columbia or Alaska, and you kind of work your way all the way through. Maybe that's one of our goals, but it's been one of those years, and it's felt really good. And as we're getting close to Christmas, and everything coming together, you look back over the year and you always kind of, for me, it's, what were the big milestones? And like you had heard, I talked about the hurricane relief and those type of things. They can sometimes mean so much more than everything else. It's kind of where you put that feather in your hat and you're like, this is what we stand for. This is the kind of people that are composing this company. This is what this company's made of, and the DNA is here, and look at what we've accomplished. So I'm really excited that you were able to do that and carry that flag all the way down to St. Louis. And
I'm looking to make it a yearly thing and making Kivi a flagstone into that program. Another one I've talked to Derek about doing, and he's on board for it, is doing the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, the Wall That Heals. It's a mobile replica of the Vietnam Wall. It's in its own trailer. It's a big deal. So if you look up the Wall That Heals, you'll be able to see it. I did it last year, and I'm planning on doing it again this year in 2025. We're just waiting to figure out which route we can do. But that's another milestone that Kivi can be part of. Hopefully we can do the Christmas tree, the national Christmas tree. That's one that's on my bucket list to do. I missed it 2 years ago, but yeah, everything I can do to bring a positive light to not only myself, but to the company as a whole, and to benefit veterans and veteran organizations, and remembering those people, I'm going to do.
Yeah.
I don't care if I don't get paid to do for that week, because in hindsight, that's the least of my worries. Freedom isn't free. And I've said that 100,000 times. The freedoms that we have is because somebody bled and died for them. And it's our obligation to show the respect for those people. There's a reason why our flag is red, white, and blue. And there's a reason why we have the national anthem that we have. And there's a reason for Veterans Day and Memorial Day and Christmas and Thanksgiving, is to give thanks. If we fail to do that, we have failed as a society, because those service members didn't have to give their lives and fight for the freedoms that we have. And we have to honor those people. Yeah. And that's just the way I feel about it.
No, well said. I believe in that as well. Let's talk about, since you've done so much to help veterans, why don't you talk about the Boots to Truck organization that you've helped create and what all of that entails. And like I said, just a short time. This started after you got your CDL, right? Boots the
It
truck.
did. So when I was, like I said earlier, when I was with NRV Foods, we started up a veterans program to help get the homeless people off the streets and to make sure that they had food. Well, we've taken that a step further. When left the food service industry, it left a hole in me. And I was like, well, how am I going to fill that gap now? So I was talking to my brother who works for another trucking company. I'm trying to convince him to come over to Kivi. I haven't made it that far yet because he's not a flatbedder. He just doesn't want to do flatbed. But we were hashing out what we could do and seeing the homeless people around the truck stops and on the street corners and underneath the traffic light with signs trying to get money and whatnot. It re-inspired what I wanted to do in my life. So we started Boost 2 Trucks. And what we are doing is we are through donations, sponsors, benefactors, schools, grants, scholarships. We're actively searching for all this. So when I'm not driving or sleeping, I'm looking for resources and trying to partner up with people. And we're taking those veterans out of the homeless shelters or off the street. We are making sure that they meet the criteria, that they have a driver's license. And if they don't have a regular driver's license, we get them help them get their driver's license. And then we help them get their CDLs and we send them to school. And then after they graduate and they have their CDL, we partner them up with a veteran friendly trucking company. And it costs them absolutely zero to do it. And they don't have that 1 year commitment of going to CR England or going to Swift or going to whatever trucking school that has availability. So they don't have that 1 year contract hanging over their head instantly because we've done all that for them. And then they can go to any trucking company because every trucking company is different. Every trucking company is going to fulfill that veterans needs differently from another. So that was the whole point, was to get homeless people and disabled vets out of the shelters, off the street, making a living, contributing to society again, and having something meaningful back into their lives and not have to rely on or be afraid of a contract saying, well, I can't go to this other company because I'm stuck here for a year.
Mm-hmm.
So we're taking care of all of that through donations, sponsors and scholarships and whatnot. We actually had a truck that we had leased out to or loaned out to another carrier that was doing training for us at a school. But the truck just becomes so expensive to maintain. We don't have that truck anymore. It almost had 2 million miles on it. So maintenance costs went sky high on it, especially with engine rebuilds and transmission rebuilds and everything
Yeah.
else that goes with it. So we're actually looking for another truck now where if a company donates one, we'll send it back to the school and they'll use it to train those veterans. So that's another kind of thing that we're looking to do. But right now we've graduated 157 veterans that are out of homelessness and into trucks. And that kind of helps in two different forms. A, they're not homeless. They live in their truck. They don't have to worry about food because they're earning a living. They're doing what they need to do and they're working up towards getting their house or an apartment or whatever they want to do, but they're not in a shelter. They're in a safe, secure environment because of the truck. They've got heat. They've got food. They've got AC and they've got freedom most of all. And that's the reason why we do that program.
It's amazing. So where is the school that you partner with? Like, where's the
So we
primary school?
have Badger CDL in Milwaukee, in the Milwaukee CDL Institute. We have two in Virginia, one in the Tidewater region and one in the Southwest region at community college that we partner with. We have one in Florida, one in Texas, and we're trying to get one in California, but you know how California is. It's been a real pain in the rear end. And we're also working on one in Chicago and trying to set one up in Missouri.
Wow. So how do you find, or how do we let veterans know that are, like you said, displaced veterans? How do you find them, or how do you get them into this program? Like somebody that's maybe, like you said, homeless, displaced, however you want to look at it, and they're out there fighting life day to day. How are you finding those veterans and bringing them in and then introducing them to it?
So what we're doing is we're teaming up with the workforce, social services, business cards. We see them, we give them a card that has our website on there. They can apply right on our website or send us a message through the contact us, and then we'll get back in touch with them. Or we'll have somebody from social services or veteran affairs reach out to them and start the process for getting their driver's license or getting the necessary tools that they need. And we coordinate all that. Or if I see one on the side of the road, I'll introduce myself, give them my card, and that's a lot of how we communicate. So we do everything that is cost effective, everything that doesn't cost the organization any money, word of mouth, internet, social media, hands on, because the more the money that we spend is less money to the veterans, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we actually have zero overhead. It's me and my brother doing everything. And if we're not doing it, it's a volunteer or a partner program doing it for us, or it's covered by grants and scholarships or donors or sponsors. So every dollar we make for the program gets pushed right to a veteran and helping them out.
Yeah. Wow. And like you said, you obviously being a professional driver and out there in every state, right? Touching every different state and truck stops and inner cities, you're able to, I don't want to say recruit, but to benefit these displaced veterans because you're out there and you're on boots on the ground.
Yes, sir. I have a printer and a computer right here in my truck. If I go to a truck stop and I'm out of pamphlets or flyers, I can easily print one, run it inside, and they'll tack it up for me.
Yeah.
And because there are a lot of veterans that hang around at truck stops and on corners and whatnot. So we always want to make sure that we have the means to get what we need to get that information out and then to help that next person.
How long does it take to get a displaced veteran? They contact you and then to where they have their license. Maybe they're not driving solo. They might be driving team or who knows what they're doing, but to get them graduated with their CDL.
It varies. I've seen it go as easy, fast as 2 months, and I've seen it take 6 months. So it really varies on who we partnered them up with and their availability and if we have the funds available to do it.
Mm-hmm.
When we had our own truck, we were knocking out 15 veterans a week, getting them situated, but we don't have that tool anymore. So we're having to rely on third parties to sponsor the program and to use their equipment. So, but once we obtain another truck, we'll start ramping back up, and then we'll send that truck back to the school that we primarily deal with, and they'll use that truck to specifically train those veterans.
So I'm assuming you stay in contact with many of these veterans that are back out on the road now and delivering goods.
I do. My phone never stops ringing. And I love hearing from them. It's really fun. I want to get this truck wrapped for military appreciation wrap done on it. I've talked to Derek about it, and we're trying to figure out how we can do it, when we can do it. And if I move over to heavy haul, it's going to give me more opportunities, because that's the ultimate goal of being a trucker, and especially the flatbed and oversized drum, is you want to eventually get to that heavy haul. And it's another platform that we can say, hey, look, I started out here, or this person started out here, now he's here. Let's duplicate that with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
definitely. Yeah, it's the pinnacle. It's the 1% of the 1%, kind of in the terms of, the military. It's special operator level, being in that heavy haul. That's how I look at it. And that's many of the things that I try to embody with our teams, and, specifically our heavy haul is we're a small team in this industry, we're composed of a small percentage of people that do heavy haul and large machinery moving. And that's what we like to hang our hat on and say that we're specialists, special operators in that realm. So it's exciting. And I can't believe all of the things that you have going on, all of the outreach, all of the conversations that you must have, like you said, throughout the day, all of the compassion that you never stop pouring out to get people off the streets and into a truck driving career, to help benefit them and to help get them, back on track to where they want to get to, never stop achieving goals. And yeah, that's amazing. So what do you have on your radar next? I mean, we talked about moving the tree across the country, continuing to help displaced veterans.
So I've talked to NASCAR themselves and a bunch of the NASCAR teams. So I'm actually working on doing some kind of benefit with the NASCAR program for like the Veterans Day race or the Memorial Day race, trying to get them to approve it so we can bring one of the trucks down there and do the pace lap with the pace car before the race, carrying an American flag around the track, setting up a recruitment booth and an info booth outside the track because a lot of veterans go to the NASCAR races. That's another outreach that I'm currently working on, and I'm negotiating with Joe Gibbs Racing, Hendrick Motorsports, Penske Racing. I've talked to a bunch of them already. They're running numbers to see how they can incorporate it into their program and go in that route. So once I have all that set up, maybe Charlotte Motor Speedway or Texas Motor Speedway or the All-Star events down there, and we can coordinate a schedule for it, then that's going to be one of my next goals going forward.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just broadening the program instead of being a regional program to become a national program. So that's my goal.
That's an amazing one. Like you said, motorsports, I'm sure a lot of veterans, like you said, are involved in watching and participating. So that's a great outreach spot to find and collaborate.
Yes, sir.
And that's no small feat. I mean, starting at a small dirt track or something, it could be challenging, but going right to the top, seems like there's nothing holding you back from going right to the top.
Now, if you were to see my phone contact list, you would probably be like, holy crap. I mean, I've talked to Blake Shelton. I've talked to the management of Gretchen Wilson Records and a bunch of these country music artists trying to set up a benefit concert. And I'm still working on that. The last one I talked to, she said, hey, once you have a venue, we can do a touchy truck event, which is a big fundraising event. Country music artists support that program. And that's another TCA event or Truckload Carriers Association, and everything's involved in it. So that's something that I'm working on. But yeah, I mean, my phone contact list is like 300 people long, and like 90% of them are celebrities or managers of celebrities and organizations that we're working with. So like I said, my phone never stops ringing.
Impressive. Well, keep up the good work. You're doing amazing things, and 157 veterans that have graduated through Boots to Trucks is impressive, to say the least. Keith, I'm happy that you were able to join with us, and we're just coming up on Christmas, like I said earlier, so I want to wish everyone listening a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year. Whatever phase of life you're in right now, you can look at Keith and ask him, how did you get through it, or what do you need to boost through any of these tough times, because we know the holidays can be challenging for some of those veterans that are displaced or not able to spend time with their family, and people like you that are helping get them back to where they want. It's just an amazing thing to be a part of, and I'm glad that I'm here to help anyway. So thank you, Keith.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Keep Trucking Personal. We appreciate you taking the time to explore the heart and soul of Kivi Brothers Trucking with us. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review to let us know your thoughts. Tune in next time as we continue our journey together, diving deeper into what makes us a community, a catalyst for positive change, and a home for those who aspire to be part of something truly extraordinary. Until then, keep trucking, and we'll catch you on the next episode.